Final Stop, Brazil. Book 2, Life After Hell, chapter 32, Hunger Strike. 2nd of June 2008. The hunger strike broke up, not because I wasn't able to go through with it, but because my official declaration was not allowed to be published by ITTC. The boss forbade it, but first one thing after another. On the 1st of May, I was initially so down that I yelled at Donna Edith. It was just too much for me to spend the holiday with all three of the loonies in the cell. Donna Edith was becoming ever more extreme in her need to be talking with someone. She was watching me constantly, and as soon as I took my headphones out my ears, she got going and wouldn't stop talking. I couldn't take any more, and would be smoothly able to murder someone. I envied her only if she worked, for then she lacked nothing, and nothing was wrong with her. During the weekends or on holidays, she was always sick and had to be maintained. At those times, she couldn't even go to the toilet alone. All the performances had the purpose to draw my attention. We were 4, but I cleaned the cell alone and cleaned the shit of others. I wanted to get out of here. Proceeded, if necessary, in the feet-first position. It was not the first time that I had the courage to end my life. I would raise it this time too. All I wanted was a conversation with Michael, so I talked to the social assistencia again about the issue, suggesting that Wesley could bring in a phone card so that the house would have no costs. She promised clarification. Maybe I could even anticipate Michael, but I would not change my date for the hunger strike on the 25th of May. For shopping, I really struck it one more time to give me little reserves to eat, because I wanted to get out of this number alive if possible. Mostly, however, I got myself a stock of drinks for the first 10 days, so I had it planned tightly. I would simply refuse any food. Only after the 10 days it would become more seriously when I gave up on liquid. This should give the judge enough time to make a decision. In the following days I was planning to forward official announcement to the judge and the director of the prison. I was called to the work assignment, but I categorically refused to work. I didn't care, nor feared any consequences, whatever. Ironically, it was Donna Tanya, the one who had put me down terribly as a guard at the scandal about the allegedly with blood-spotted t-shirt, who was now responsible for work assignment. It fit me very well, because now I let my anger run wild. When she asked why I refused to work, she heard from me, "But you should know best what these women have done to me. I cannot stand the sight of no one here anymore. And people like you are backing up those things and cover such bitches. And that's why I also avoid guards and police officers as much as possible. And this I can only do if I'm staying 24 hours in the cell." She was quite pale after this verbal attack, and asked simply, "Are you now in a better cell?" Whereupon I replied in the same aggressive tone, "Of course, with 3 loonies, and that's why I will no longer work. 3 are enough." But what the use? I had to pass a terrible long weekend with those 3. However, wrote an email that I wanted to send out by ITTC about the topic, Isabel Nadoni and Roberto Cabrini, from the perspective of a prisoner, which should be sent to the media. Since a long time, I visited Katie in her cell to be surrounded by normal people, at least for a short time. I showed her the email, which she was very impressed of, not just about my Portuguese, but also about my argumentation. Many TV programs were asking for letters and opinions of viewers about these cases. This opportunity I wasn't going to miss, and hoped one of the programs would read my email. My wish that Donna Edith was sleeping when I returned was not fulfilled. She was waiting for me, but I drew that tooth for her. My phones remained in my ears. I would not hear anything of her. Thank God the long weekend was over, and that day was my holiday. 1st of May, Dia dos Trabalhadores. 5th of May, Dia das Vagabundas. But lazy I was not. Quite the contrary. Again I had to wash a lot of the piss laundry of Donna Edith and design my official statement on my hunger strike. In the afternoon, Exalta Samba was live in the studio of Transcontinental, and my entire attention was on them. From the 12th of May on, there was no turning back. My official statements to the press and human rights organizations I had sent out by ITTC. The staff of ITTC was very shocked about my decision and the explanation why, which they read carefully. Again and again they asked me if I really wanted to go through with it. One of the male staff wanted to know more about my story. I told him how it came to my arrest and why I lost contact with my so-called family. During my story, horror was written on the face of this young man, especially when I reported that and how I lost everything I ever owned. Finally, we discussed the inequities of the Brazilian judiciary, but were interrupted when it was time for the group to leave. However, all wished me good luck and hoped that the decision for me was not taking too long, so I would gain no health damage. I had met more understanding here than I expected. My emails, however, in which I strongly criticized the justice of Brazil, attacked programs such as Globo and Record by telling them they were manipulative, were neither read out on television nor answered. Another Mother's Day passed by, on which I was in a bad mood, and again I got no message from Michael. I was seriously worried about him, and was disappointed of the Assistencia Social, who still not returned an answer to my offer with a phone card. Nevertheless, I stuffed that day really my belly full to celebrate the day with cake, pizza, and spheres. To all those delicious things, I couldn't say no, and then suffered from severe stomach pains. My stomach was simply not accustomed to this kind of food, but I made the same mistake again and again. My worries about Michael were increasing every day. Why didn't he nor his guardian call? Why was there no sign? Of Wesley I heard nothing. Those 3 pigs in the cell were almost unbearable for me. The fucking toilet was used and filled with shit, but not cleaned except from me. Stench and filth, the piss pants of Edith, and in general the presence of these subjects that only showered once every few days. It got worse for me. Donna Edith showered twice a day, but still smelled unpleasant at times. It disgusted me having to touch her. 2 days earlier she had fallen from her bed. I had to wake up the other dirty bitch to help me because I alone couldn't get Donna Edith hoisted from the floor. Since 1 week, Alexandra Nadoni and Anna Carolina Jatoba were in preventive detention. What a spectacle on TV this arrest was. The lawyers immediately applied for habeas corpus, of course, but this was immediately rejected, due to pressure from the media. There was perhaps a little justice in this country, but the lawyers wanted now to apply for habeas corpus in Brasilia. Well, Anna Carolina had plenty of time to make friends with Susanne von Richthofen in Tremembé. She instigated her ex-boyfriend and his brother to murder her own parents in order to get the inheritance. One more of those cases where the defendant spent a long time in freedom because a lot of money was in the game. The morning when Anna Carolina was supposed to be brought first from the delegacia to a penitenciaria, I thought it very funny and entertaining. First, the responsible delegado stated in a TV interview she should be transferred to the PFC. When I told the joyful news to the guards, panic spread. None of them wanted her and didn't really want to believe me either. A short time later, this statement was repeated, and my cell was full of guards to watch it. Tense like watching a thriller, we followed the transport of Anna Carolina together in real time on the road to us. Amused, I joked, our directora has surely already headache considering where she should put that one isolated. In the Brazilian prison hierarchy, infanticide was not tolerated, and the presence of these monsters may well lead to rebellions, which have the effect that vigilant justice was perpetrated. So the prison directors have to protect those people from the other prisoners, which is nearly impossible in a state prison controlled by PCC. The security crew was shocked when the convoy now actually stood in front of our gate, but only for a few minutes, because the police was too stupid to distinguish the Penitenciaria Carandiru from the Penitenciaria Santana. Thus, Anna Carolina was loaded back in the van and carted to the other side in the PE. There, however, the reception was not very friendly either. Promptly, the other prisoners wrote with giant letters in the yard, "Your gift for Mother's Day. Jail. Homenagem a Isabella." Some crash happened, obviously, during the evening, because early in the morning, and in silence, Anna Carolina was taken to Tremembé. Alexandre also had to be moved early from the first prison to another, because the inmates did not tolerate his presence. Where he currently was, in Guarulhos, also was a threat of a rebellion. This story would probably stay a few days exciting. The 18th of May was for me the last Sunday I allowed myself to have food, but after my good breakfast with bread and strawberry jam, I had enough for the rest of the day. Reason: again a dirty toilet and the sight of Donna Edith, who was shoving her food again while lying in her bed. My thought was, next week I only need to look at those three here, and it will be too easy with the hunger strike. Alessandro Nardoni was moved again, and now he lived in Tremembé, in the men's maximum security prison. He was there in good company. There only the hard cases were housed. I received an unexpected joyful gift. Donna Edith's son sent me by post 3 photos of Exalta Samba, which now adorned my walls. Otherwise, I spent the weekend with Samba and now switched between 5 radio stations, always on the hunt for music of Exalta Samba. In addition to Transcontinental, I found the radio station 105.0 Alegria, playing also a lot of new music from young samba bands, and a new station, Omega, playing a lot of old music, especially Exalta Samba. My worries about Michael didn't become less when I once again did a clandestine phone call, because the Assistencia Social never gave me a reply. Again, it was Claudia who helped me. But Michael didn't answer, only the answering machine was on. A message I didn't leave. When Claudia and the others saw my photos of Exalta Samba, all commented, "Sua bandita, como conseguiu?" How come? You have photos of them. I was offered up to 2 cartons of cigarettes for the photos. I refused. De jeito nenhum. No way. Of Claudia, I got the task to write a letter to the judge, for her Israeli boyfriend, a South African, wanted to have her judgment translated from me. This went on constantly. Of boredom, I could never really complain, but the highlight of Sunday began for me at 11 in the night with a show of Exalta Samba on television. For 1 hour they played the hits of the new album, Pagode de Exalta. In this hour, all worries were forgotten, and I was turning the samba wheel. On 22nd of May, I was surprisingly called to the school by ITTC. What for? I hoped that my explanation had not been sent out too early. No, they didn't have. Instead, they looked up my process very committed and informed me that on 10th of June my appeal procedure should go to law. The young man with whom I had conducted a week earlier this rather intense conversation was trying by every means to dissuade me from the hunger strike. At least I should postpone it and wait for what would happen. He pointed out that the hunger strike could entitle to my disadvantage. The risk I have to take. I want my case to go to the public, I said bitterly. The court and the prison director may refuse any information. He argued. I take the risk also. I insisted, and also insisted on the date 25th of May. Resigned, he promised to abide with that date. Back in the cell, however, I was miserable. I wondered why the people of ITTC could give me information about my process, while Wesley, as my lawyer, was not able to do so. If Wesley would have informed me of this date, I would have perhaps still blown everything, but now I would not. I would fight for my rights. Furthermore, who guaranteed that I would regain my freedom on the 10th of June? Perhaps It would be only a few months reduced of the total penalty, and money I had no more to fight again for the release on parole. To go on like this I couldn't either.